In the quiet classroom, she sat with her legs draped across the desk. I caught her watching those videos I should never have seen. Her expression was one of pure intimacy, her thoughts lost in a world I could only imagine. When I knocked gently on the door, the spell was broken. She fumbled. What happened afterward changed my life in many ways. I discovered something hidden inside me for years, waiting for her to reignite. We began exploring each other's bodies deeply, but one day, everything changed for us. It's strange how moments you least expect can define your life forever. At 18, I never imagined that my senior year of high school would lead to a story that I would carry with me for the rest of my days. This is the story of how I, an ordinary girl on the cusp of adulthood, found myself in a whirlwind of emotions, with a love that defied norms and expectations. It all began with Ms. Avery, my English teacher. She was 38 years old, with a grace and elegance that was unmatched. Her dark hair was always tied neatly in a bun, her outfits professional yet stylish. She had this way of speaking, calm, composed, and captivating. Our interactions were always professional at first. I was just another student in her crowded classroom, another face in the sea of eager and sometimes indifferent teens. But as the year went on, I began to notice little things about her. The way her eyes lit up when she spoke about her favorite books. The soft laugh she'd let out when someone made a clever remark. The way she seemed to care about each student's struggles and triumphs. One day during lunch, I walked into her classroom to ask a question about an assignment. I found her at her desk, her laptop open. She didn't notice me at first. I hesitated at the door, unsure whether to interrupt. Then I saw it, a romantic video playing on her screen. The scene was tender, a couple sharing a kiss under the rain. She looked so engrossed, her face soft and vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. "Ms. Avery?" I called out gently. She startled, quickly pausing the video and turning her attention to me. Her cheeks flushed a deep shade of pink. "Oh, hi, Lily," she said, clearing her throat. "What can I do for you?" I pretended not to notice her embarrassment, but the image of her watching that video stayed with me. It made her seem more human, more relatable. That moment marked the beginning of something I couldn't quite name at the time. Over the next few weeks, I found myself lingering after class more often, asking questions that didn't really need answers, just to spend a little more time with her. She was always patient, always kind. Our conversations began to shift, from schoolwork to books, from books to life. I learned that she loved rainy days, that she played the piano in her free time, that she dreamed of traveling to Europe someday. The turning point came one late afternoon. I had stayed after school to help decorate the gym for an event. Ms. Avery was there, supervising. As the evening wore on, it started to rain. The sound of raindrops against the windows was soothing, and the gym was quiet except for the two of us. "You've done a great job," she said, smiling at me. Her eyes held a warmth that made my heart flutter. "Thanks," I replied, feeling a blush creep up my cheeks. "It's easier when you have good company." She laughed softly, and for a moment, we just stood there, looking at each other. The air felt different, charged, electric. I don't know who moved first, but suddenly we were close. Too close. Her hand brushed against mine, and the world seemed to hold its breath. "Lily," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. Before she could say more, I leaned in and kissed her. It was impulsive, reckless, and utterly right. For a moment, she kissed me back, her lips soft and warm against mine. Then she pulled away, her eyes wide with a mix of emotions, shock, fear, longing. "We can't," she said, stepping back. It's not right." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "I'm sorry," I whispered, turning to leave. But that wasn't the end. The days that followed were a whirlwind of confusion and suppressed emotions. We tried to keep our distance, but the connection between us was undeniable. Every glance, every accidental touch, Every shared moment felt charged with unspoken feelings. One evening, I found a note slipped into my locker. It was from Ms. Avery. It read, "We need to talk. Meet me at the park after sunset." I went, my heart pounding with anticipation and fear. She was there, sitting on a bench under the glow of a street lamp. When she saw me, she stood, her expression conflicted. "Lily, this is hard for me," she began. "You've become so important to me, but this, what we're feeling, it's complicated." "I know," I said, stepping closer, "but I can't help how I feel." Neither could she. That night we talked for hours, laying bare our fears, our hopes, our feelings. We knew the risks, the impossibilities of our situation, but love has a way of ignoring logic and reason. The weeks that followed were both magical and agonizing. We were careful, so careful. Every stolen moment felt like a treasure. She'd invite me to her home on weekends, under the guise of extra tutoring. Those afternoons were our sanctuary. We'd sit in her living room, the soft notes of her piano filling the air, and read poetry to each other. It was in those moments that I felt the depth of her soul, her vulnerability, her love. "You're everything I never knew I needed," she told me one evening, her voice trembling with emotion. "But I'm so afraid of losing you, Lily." "You won't lose me," I promised, taking her hand in mine. "We'll find a way to make this work." There were days when the weight of our secret felt unbearable. The fear of being discovered loomed over us, a constant shadow. But there were also moments of pure joy. Picnics in secluded parks, long drives through the countryside, stolen kisses under the stars. With her, I felt alive, in a way I never had before. Our love was a delicate balance of passion and restraint. I remember one night in particular, when the rain poured outside her window, mirroring the storm of emotions within us. She played the piano, her fingers dancing over the keys, the melody haunting and beautiful. I sat beside her, watching her with a mix of awe and adoration. When she finished, she turned to me, her eyes searching mine. "Lily," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. "I've never felt this way before. You make me feel alive." I leaned in, capturing her lips with mine. This time there was no hesitation, no pulling away. We let the world fade away, lost in the intensity of our love. That night, we crossed a line we could never uncross, giving ourselves fully to each other. It was a moment of vulnerability, of trust, of unbridled passion. In the weeks that followed, our bond grew even stronger. We became inseparable, our love consuming us in the best and worst ways. But with every moment of happiness came the nagging fear of discovery. The walls we had built around our secret felt fragile, ready to crumble at any moment. One day, a fellow student saw us together at a coffee shop, our demeanor too familiar to pass as merely teacher and student. Rumors spread like wildfire, and soon, the school administration was involved. Ms. Avery resigned, and I was left to face the fallout alone. The twist came years later. By then, I was in college, pursuing a degree in literature, inspired, of course, by Ms. Avery. One day, I walked into a bookstore, and there she was, signing copies of her debut novel. It was a love story, raw and heartfelt, and unmistakably ours. Our eyes met across the room, and in that moment, I knew our story wasn't over. Life had pulled us apart, but it had a way of bringing us back together. And as I approached her, my heart racing, I realized that some loves are meant to endure, no matter the obstacles. The end of one chapter was just the beginning of another.